Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second annual Housing Transformation Summit. I'm John Galante. I'm president of AE Ventures, the company which produces this event. On behalf of the whole team, and we've been working really hard on this event for months, thank you so much for coming. We have a great and intimate group attending this year's event. We have roughly 60 guests who are representing 36 companies, about 70,000 homes built annually, and $35 billion in annual revenue on the guest side of the equation. On the sponsor side, 45 sponsoring companies. These are the best in the digital solutions realm, specialized to the home building business, and some of the most innovative and I would say supportive finishes, structures, and systems vendors. So in addition to those buyers and sellers, we have a ton of content, which has really been the heart of this event since we launched it last year. I'm thrilled. Tim will be taking the helm here of the executive forum, but it's Costello Unbound.
Excellent.
And Tim will be anchoring the executive forum. Brandon Savage, I don't think Brandon's in the room, but he does anchoring work for us on some of our other events, and he'll be on the helm in structures and systems. And Deanna Vidal with John Burns' New Home Trends Institute, new relationship there, and she'll be heading up a great finishes and personalization track. In total, we've got 44 presenters, folks who are sharing insights, ideas, best practices, etc. So it's a small group. It's smaller than we would like it to be usually, and I've called it Damn December because we started last year November 30 instead of December 5, and psychologically it makes a world of difference. I really appreciate all the builders who took time in December to join us. I think we would have had another 20, 30 guests for sure if we somehow started in late November, but it is what it is, and I think it's a high-quality audience, and it's a high-quality group of vendors, and I think the intent is great in this group. The intent to innovate, the intent to go get more market share, the intent to do better for your buyers. It's here, and we can have some great collaboration over the next 3 days and really make some magic. I want to hit, if I can move forward, on just some key concepts, and in your folders you all got what we call conversation starters, and we're just trying to frame some of the discussions, particularly between the vendors, the digital solution providers, and the builders. But let's start off with the Make the World a Better Place concept for this event, which is helping builders increase their share of market. When I put these pie charts together last year, home building business was a $330 billion business. That's not chump change by any stretch of the imagination, but the reality is it's $330 billion out of $3.5 trillion that was spent on housing in 2021. So the vast majority of that market share is owned by used houses, and then more dollars than the builders get are spent on home improvement. So we think builders can do much better. We think they can do that by differentiating, by the homes that they build being more innovative, more on trend, personalized to the lifestyle and design sensibilities of the buyer, a better buying experience. That's where a lot of the digital solutions come into play, and a better living, and I like to say asset management experience, which is that home is an asset. It's probably the top financial asset for most of the buyers. Can we make it easier and more efficient for them to maintain that asset? Can we make it easier and more efficient for them to just have their lifestyle and maintain that home? Those are the pillars of differentiation. And so in terms of a conversation starter, what I want to encourage is this to be one of the center points of your discussions between builder guests and the folks that you're meeting on the solution provider and sponsor side of things. Like on the product side of things, how does this make my new homes better than a used house, describe it, and quantify it. And let's have that discussion so we know that and we can bring that data point home when we decide to do something about those products. I think really importantly, how can a vendor help the builder tell that story, communicate that value proposition in a dynamic way? And then on the solution side of things, that onboarding experience with the home, starting up the home, how can you help on that front? And how can you improve, again, that ownership experience? Those are going to be key differentiators in terms of winning the battle of new versus used. And then on the innovation side of things, so we spent a lot of time banging our heads against the wall on the home technology side of things. And I think what we started to discover was that, and I think this applies for all vendors, is it's not enough to just have a product with cool features and benefits and advantages. It really is about whether that vendor can support the innovation being successful with the builder. So we built this little New Deal flywheel. So what we're trying to say is, builders, put away the purchasing specialist mentality of last year's thing for 20% less for a little while. Let's lean into the innovation. And on the vendor side of things, you got to talk about more than the product. You got to talk about the research that you have that says this product is in demand and by whom or from whom. You have to, if you're a piece and a part, if you're a side dish, or even if you're the main dish, how do you put all the pieces together so it's a complete meal? How are you going to make that easy for the builder? The marketing and sales supports, again, to tell that value proposition, to communicate it dynamically. There's the in-person side of that. There's the interactive side of that. There's the digital side of that. Design and production. Now that could be subcontractor training. It could be subcontractor matchmaking. It could be reference designs. But how are you going to make the design and production of that home something that's solid? And then that ownership experience, right? Most of the folks who are in this room on the builder side of things are thinking beyond the end of the warranty period and how they can have a better, stronger relationship or a better experience for their buyers. So how, Mr. Vendor, are you going to support that long-term ownership experience? And I think recognizing some of the bigger players on the builder side of things, nobody jumps in whole hog on innovation. And what are you going to do to support tests and trials, which is the typical path to getting innovations? And so I want to encourage the discussions to incorporate some of this and not just be feature and benefit focused on the product side of things. And then on the digital transformation side of things, we just tried to map out the scope of digital transformation. And I think back to my days in factory automation, and I remember the Society of Manufacturing Engineers put together these pillars of automation and all this acronym soup of computer integrated manufacturing and factory automation. It was because the vendors and the implementers talked past each other a lot. So let's make sure we're talking about the same thing. The way I scoped it was kind of about selling through delivery, right? So it's like on the digital solution sides, there's solutions and services that will help us be more aggressive out at the edge in terms of getting the buyer's attention. There's solutions that help us engage the prospective buyer and drive them down the funnel. I'm a personal proponent of having this personalization piece experienced digitally even before we get to yes with the initial sale. And then once we do, let's sell the living daylights out of the options using the digital design center technology, and that's proven effect on take rates. Let's feed that information, that database through to purchasing and production so we can do that stuff efficiently, report back to the buyers as the process moves along. And then finally, if we have documented that buying process and if we've documented the as-built home digitally, we're sitting on some incredible information assets that we can use in ownership applications to make that ownership experience better and to develop new revenue streams for us in terms of attachment sales and maintenance sales. So that's something that can be used to, again, focus the conversation. Which piece of this digital transformation scope are you going to help me accomplish, Mr. solution provider. So just some thoughts for you to maybe make your conversations a little more purposeful. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tim to take us home on the Executive Forum, next 4.5 hours or so. Very excited to have you on board, Tim, in this role, and thank you so much for all the work you've done developing it.
John, in the next 4.5 hours, what are you going to do?
I'm going to walk.
All right. Well, thank you, John. Hey, everybody. Welcome to sunny Seattle. I hope you brought your suntan lotion. Everybody get UV 50 just to make sure we don't get any sun up here at all. Good. Excellent. Before I get started in my brief presentation, I would like to just congratulate everybody for being here. It is really easy in a challenging and disruptive and changing market to go, things are changing. I probably should stick to my knitting and stay at home, and we just better put my head down in operations. The challenge is when you do that, you miss an opportunity to pivot your business. The best way to manage through change is for you to manage the change rather than the change to manage you. And being here means that you actually fought through that kind of knee-jerk reaction to saying, I'd better just go heads down and we better just figure out how we're not going to sell any more homes this week, right? But you came here and you made a commitment. So what we're going to talk about first is how to think about disruption and innovation and how to be a technology leader and manager. And that is really embracing change as a strategic weapon in your business. So you may not know, but I've been doing this for a long time across a lot of different verticals. I started my career in General Motors, and at one point in time, I was the advanced technology manager for General Motors. And when I was there, we introduced the very first production electric vehicle. Long before there was a Tesla, there was something called the EV1. It looked like this. It actually started by using nickel-cadmium batteries. There were no lithium batteries at the time. But when you think about in 1990, this was 30 years before the next production electric vehicle would be launched. What we saw is a series of technology innovations that were all beginning to come together that was going to change the automotive industry. You saw battery technology getting better and better, even though lithium batteries had not even been productionized yet, right? But it was still getting better and better. You're getting more charge in a smaller space with less weight, saying, wow, you can store more energy in batteries, and every year you're going to be able to store more and more. You saw the motor technology improve, where motors got stronger and smaller and more effective. And you put that together to create an electric vehicle 30 years before potentially the market was ready. Now, we had other opportunities. I moved into Applied Materials, which is the world's largest semiconductor manufacturer company. They are all about technology. That's all they're about. They're about going into university research laboratories all over the world and finding out what the latest cutting-edge technology is and quickly bringing that to market. What they didn't understand was manufacturing technology. When I arrived in the semiconductor space, the way they built a machine is they would order 10,000 parts, and they would pile them up in a factory clean room in a space that was about 40 feet by 40 feet, and there'd be a pile of parts about 16 feet tall. And there were literally 10,000 individual parts. There'd be little bags of screws and little pieces of steel and motors and cryo pumps and all kinds of expensive equipment. Millions of dollars of equipment would be stacked in a factory. And then you'd pay highly trained technicians to start to assemble those parts, and it would take them months to physically assemble one machine. And at the end of that process, they had never built a machine that worked. Then they would send in another group of techs to debug why the machine you built never worked. And this was a standard way that all of the highest technology equipment in the world was built, and it had been built that way for decades. But you could see again the tea leaves coming together. This was a growing industry that was technology savvy, and if you could apply the Toyota production system to that kind of semiconductor industry, you could fundamentally change the semiconductor industry. So in a period of 5 years, we completely rebuilt the entire semiconductor manufacturing industry in the United States. We were able to build what used to take 3 to 4 months and put 10,000 parts together. We were able to assemble that in 1 day, with 90% of the machines coming off the line working the very first time. A fundamental change in scale, which allowed us then to produce the volume of chip growth in the world that's changed our world. It's created everything that we have in our pockets and we buy for entertainment. It was enabled by that fundamental change to create that kind of capacity. I also have the opportunity of being on the Shingo Prize Examining Committee, and the Shingo Prize is kind of the Nobel Prize for manufacturing. And companies apply for it, and then we send examiners all around the world to study these plants and to grade them and hand out the Shingo Prize on an annual basis. And that allows me to kind of travel around the world and see all these best companies in Korea and Japan and China, Asia, South America, Central America, all over the world. So I bring all of that kind of experience here to the home building industry. In the home building industry, I have to tell you, normally what I do, it's kind of like forensic science. I go out and I look at companies and how they manage technology, and it kind of looks like this. It kind of looks like a dystopian wreck in a wasteland. And whether you're studying Kodak, for example, and how they fumbled the future with digital photography, it's insightful to understand, how did that happen? How did somebody going from being the third most valuable brand in the world, employing 80,000 people in one city, inventing digital photography, building the first digital chip, taking the first digital picture from outer space, all was done by Kodak. And yet in a period of less than 5 years, they had lost that business completely and were displaced and ended up going out of business. So it's instructive to kind of read the tea leaves of how did all of this happen? What common threads were there? What common threads were there with Blockbuster, who owned the entire rental market, to be displaced by people like Redbox and Netflix? How did Blockbuster somehow not buy Netflix, even though they were offered Netflix twice? The first time for less than $1 million, they could have bought Netflix, the entire company. And they said, no, we're not going to do that. And of course, there's a lot of examples. There's Nokia. For anybody that's as old as I was and was kind of in the first round of cell phones, you all owned a Nokia phone. And I can almost guarantee you in this audience, there's not a single person in this audience that has a Nokia phone and probably hasn't owned one for over 25 years. So something happens to companies, to leaders, to companies that own their market, dominate their market position. Yet when change comes to those markets, they have an inability to identify it, manage it, harness it, and then thrive in this new paradigm. And you can see that with Tesla, GM, and Ford. You can see that, with what Dell did to HP. You can see that in the battle that's going on even with Walmart and Amazon. And the resistance to change is kind of a native reaction. It's coded in our kind of oldest part of our amygdala, in our brain. It's a very reptilian part of our brain that when we see change, it creates fear, it creates anxiety. We secrete all kinds of hormones, right, that don't help us with rational, thoughtful thinking and processing. So we have to overcome that. My assessment has been there's been a series of commonalities as to why we fail to embrace innovation and why we fail to embrace change. We have, first of all, an over-attachment to the status quo. All of us have an over-attachment to how our company currently runs, partly because we built it, right? You may have spent 10 years of your life creating what it is today, the systems that we have, how we compete, the options that we have, the land that we bought, the markets that we're in. You made those decisions. And it's hard for us to decouple the fact that we made those decisions from what might be rational moving forward. So we have an over-attachment and a bias to the decisions that we have previously made. The second issue is there's an underestimation of the impact and ramifications of change. Sometimes we see it and we go, oh, that's really interesting. Modular housing, manufactured housing, kind of interesting. I don't think that will affect me though. Yeah, there's kind of there's just kind of this kind of summary dismissal that it's not going to have a big impact on me or my business. So first of all, we're too attached to what we've created. And the second is even when we see the opportunities, we fail to understand just how profound they're going to be and how large a change they're going to have an impact on us. And then the third is that there's a lack of vision or appreciation for other people's vision. We see this particularly in startups, that startups will look at this new technology and envision an entirely new world. You take an open door that looked at digital marketplaces and said, we don't need to have realtors walk people through homes. We could actually use AI to determine what homes are worth. We could streamline the entire home buying and flipping process, right, using software and technology. Others look at that and go, AI, I'm not sure it really has a place in housing. Remote access and remote tours, too much liability, who knows what people are going to do in the homes. Again, over-attachment to the status quo, lack of understanding of how much it's going to affect my industry, and we simply don't see the vision of how technology could fundamentally transport our business. So today, we need, right, to kind of harness that alter ego, that technology planning advocate in ourselves, and think about things differently. I've shown this chart before to this event, and it's very important and critical for us to understand. There's a book written by Charles Fine, who's an MIT professor, and he studies industries and how fast they change. And he wrote this book called Clock Speed, and he says every industry has an internal clock speed. And for example, the semiconductor industry, the people that make consumer electronics and stuff, their clock speed is about a year or 18 months, meaning if you're not destroying your current product offerings in 12 to 18 months, then you're on your way out of business. So think about that from Samsung and iPhone. Every 12 and 18 months, they're sitting there going, we're going to create a new product that's going to destroy the product we currently have in the marketplace. And every 12 to 18 months, you're on that just continuous treadmill of innovation and disruption cycles. It creates a culture, right, within the country that's constantly looking for new technologies and new opportunities because it's your job to destroy what you've put in the marketplace 12 months from now. So think about that. If that was your job in housing, you'd be drooling here going, I've got to find some new products. I've got to find some new technology because I've got to destroy my product offering 12 months from now. But we don't have that culture. And part of the reason we don't have that culture is housing sits on the whole other end of the spectrum. Housing is the slowest industry that has ever been studied. And when I mean slow, I mean the average cycle time of change within our industry is 20 years. It takes us 20 years to decide that PEX is easier to install in a house than solid copper. It took us 20 years to decide that drywall in 4x8 sheets was easier to put up than lath and horsehair plaster. It took us 20 years to decide that 3 tabs on a shingle was easier than hammering 3 individual tabs on a roof. 20 years for these simple innovations to permeate, right, our environment. So this is the environment that we have grown up with. So today, we need to free our shackles. We need to cast off. We need to understand that times have changed, that the environment that we live in, the competitors that we have that are nipping at our heels, whether it be manufactured housing, whether it be large companies offshore from Japan who have a completely different view of how you build housing in the United States and how you perform the quality inspection and the streamlining of the supply chain here in the United States. The marketplace is changing, and we need to free our shackles, embrace technology, and figure out how to disrupt and destroy our own business. So we're going to practice a new approach today of how we are going to be technology planners, how we're going to address and how we're going to approach and how we're going to absorb and adopt both technology and innovation. So we have this basic model of innovation and disruption. We need to figure out how we can learn to assess the disruptions. Where are they in the market? Where are changes? Where are disruptions that I can find? Where are innovations that I can find? Then we need to figure out and resist our desire to deny them, right? Because that will be our first issue. That's not going to be, we've tried that before, right? That won't work. I heard something about this over there, right? We've got to resist that, assess them, and harness its power to transform our business. But the first thing we need to do is we need to figure out how do we find these things? How do we see them? And you've taken the first step of that already. You're here. You came here for a reason. You came here to learn. So right away, you filtered yourself out of about 100,000 other people that decided it wasn't important to learn about what's going on in the trends in housing. So this is the creme de la creme. So you've already filtered your way to the top. But we can do that by kind of leaning in. And you've leaned in today. But then we have to have curiosity. We have to get beyond that initial reaction of rejection, right? and the initial reaction of assuming that this isn't going to impact our business. We need information gathering, information seeking, and we need really open networks. One of the things that I see in our industry is our networks are too closed. The people that we talk to are the same people that we talk to over and over and over again, that we don't accept information from outside. I have given this advice before. You should have a Gen Z and a millennial advisory committee within your builder. Ask them how they would actually go about selling homes, marketing homes, building homes. What tools would they use in the company? Because it won't be the tools that you're using today. The challenge is we don't. We have an aging population. It is dominated particularly by white men, aging white men. And the diversity of who's buying today are single white females or single female buyers. How is our aging population going to appreciate the needs and desires of the new buyer population? We need to open our networks and bring more people under the tent to understand what our future is really going to look like. So let's look at this. This is the model that we're going to use today. This lake out here, this is your business ecosystem. You participate here. This is the housing, the for sale housing industry. That's your business. It's a little teeny leaf boat. It's a little teeny entity on this gargantuan sea. It's kind of what John talked about. This is your $3 trillion lake, and that boat is your business that sells 50 homes a year. So it is a teeny microscopic flake in this ecosystem. These are disruptions, and they create ripples. The challenge is there's not just one disruption at a time, right? There's dozens of disruptions, hundreds of disruptions, thousands of disruptions, and they don't all occur in one place. They're occurring all over this lake, and they're of different sizes. Some are small pebbles that are being thrown into the pond, and others are school buses that are being thrown into the pond. When interest rates go from 3% to 7%, that's a school bus that's being thrown into the pond. It's a disruption. And it doesn't really matter where that disruption is being thrown into the pond. That leaf boat is going to suffer the consequences of mortgage rates going from 3 to 7%. Does this make sense? Now, the challenge with waves is that they interact. And when waves interact, they form giants. And this is where technology management and insight comes into play. We're not looking for a tsunami. We're not looking for just one change that we can grab. We need to constantly scan the horizon to see all of these disruptions in the pond. We need to understand what's going on with distributed electrical energy generation systems, what's going on with resilient housing. We need to understand what's going on with insulation technologies. We need to understand what's going on in BIM and CAD modeling and digital twins. We need to understand all of these disruptions in the pond, because as those disruptions come together, that's what's going to create the waves of change that we can ride. And if there is one observation, again, that I have in general in our industry, is that we're waiting for tsunamis. We're ignoring all of the small disruptions, and we're waiting for that one gargantuan, perfect tsunami that you can ride. But that's not how technology works. I have heard more than one executive say, well, we're going to use virtual reality and all of that modeling stuff once it does X, Y, and Z. Meaning they're waiting for a tsunami. They're waiting for the technology to be perfect before they decide to do anything with it. We'll have a digital design center when X, Y, and Z, which means they're going to do nothing until it's perfect. The challenge is it never gets perfect. And every year you simply get a new list of what X, Y, and Z is. They're the 3 reasons you're rejecting technology. It gets back to the reason why technology management is so hard. You're attached to the status quo. You're rejecting the change. You don't understand what it can do for you, right? So you wait for the tsunami. You wait for that perfect set of conditions, the one wave, right, that you'll agree to attach yourself and ride into the shore. But that's not the way technology works. You need to look at the small changes, find small changes, embrace yourself with 30 small waves of disruption. And we're going to be introducing those waves to you not only in this session, but through now the next 2 days of the conference. You're going to see a myriad of opportunities. And those waves can come together to transform your business. So the opportunity awaits us if we search and we recognize and we embrace all of these smaller waves. So pack your boards. We're going to go surfing today. And the way we're going to do that is we have organized, as John has said, this session into these 5 basic kind of groupings. And we're kind of go from the beginning to the end of the customer experience within home building. And it all starts with the fact that we need to leverage digital technology, anti-anxiety offers, and improve customer acquisition. What do we really mean? It means you got to find customers. If we don't connect with buyers in the marketplace effectively, then it really doesn't matter what homes we've built, what we've put in them, how we've priced them, right? What our mortgage and finance is. It doesn't really matter. If we can't find buyers in the marketplace, then the entire supply chain, the entire enterprise is in jeopardy. So we're going to begin talking about how can we use digital technology and what kind of trends are in the marketplace today for us to be able to find buyers. Then the second thing is, great, now we've connected with buyers because we know even today there's going to be 4+ million people, 4+ million households that are going to buy homes this year. I mean, I talk to builders all the time. They go, oh, the market's dead. There's nobody buying homes. No, there's more than 4 million people that are going to buy homes, even in this market. That's way more people than we need to buy the new homes. We're only going to sell probably 600,000-700,000 new homes. So we have way more people than we need. The question is, how do we reach out to them? How do we connect with them? How do we find them? That's what we're going to talk about first. Then the second thing is, what do we offer them? What should be in those homes? What makes those homes unique? What makes those homes different? What makes those homes worthy of a new home premium? How do we price those homes? How do we promote and merchandise those homes in the marketplace? Because once I've got a customer, once I've found somebody that needs to move because you just got married and you're moving from Arizona to Seattle because your job's up here, you've got to buy a home. Now the question is, what home? How do I compete because there's 50,000 other homes that are used on the market for sale? How do I establish myself, position myself in the market so your product becomes the only viable solution? You do that through pricing, you do it through merchandising, you do it through promotion, and you do it through creating the best product. So we're going to talk about that next. Then we're going to move on to profitable personalization and digital design centers, kind of the heart of our mission. I mean, this is the promise of new, that you build a home around them instead of them having to build themselves around an existing home, right? I mean, this is the whole difference between new and used housing. So the question is, how do we take people through that process to maximize profits? And this is a 30% increase in options, revenue, and profitability that is just staring you in the face, ready for you to have today. And we're going to hear from builders like Fulton Homes that are going to come, and they've been on this journey for over a decade, and they can tell you exactly what happens to their profitability, to their revenue, to their profit per home, to their customer satisfaction, so that we can embrace this idea of personalization. We're going to take a quick break for lunch, then we're going to come back and we're going to start talking about digital twins. Digital twins, think about it as a digital operating model, a full digital replica of your company. What if you had a digital replica of every home? What could you do with that? What could you do in your supply chain to shorten your supply chain and to improve efficiencies, to reduce costs, to do better takeoffs, to reduce materials, etc.? And then last, we're going to clean it up with enhancing the ownership experience and tapping the lifetime value. So we're going to talk about how do you make more money after the sale of a home. Today, most homes for builders, the moment they're closed, become a liability. We put a reserve on those homes going, well, there could be warranty claims. You never know. We're going to get sued on a certain number of homes, right? We create a series of reserves. So it's all a liability. What if every home we built became a cash flow where there's a perpetual stream of dollars that flows forever from that home to the builder? Again, a complete rethinking that before, without technology, may have been too complicated, too challenging, too difficult, but with technology, with a homeowner app, that you hand the homeowner today that manages and runs their homes, that they order all the materials from and the services on, that you get a spiff on for the rest of time, that fundamentally changes the enterprise value of what a home builder is. So instead of rejecting it, going, oh yeah, but it happened, I'm not sure I want to give that away, and blah, 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 there are 10,000 excuses not to transform your business. Put a hold on that. Be a technology planner and leader here today for a moment and think about how we could re-envision our future and recreate the value of our business.